introduce a tool. This is a modern tool. We call it recharge trench. Now civil engineers would understand it. You make inverted filters. This is a trench which is made of an inverted filter. Simple soils at the top, then sand, then coarse sand, gravel and bigger gravel, and all you do is you dig a trench and you fill it with this kind of material. And then if you have a street like this is very common in especially Pindi and Dhurshahar, Sarsayed town and those areas. So this is our lifestyle. You don't have to change it. But what you can do with this street is this. Dig the street, put an inverted trench over there. These are your houses, and this is what it looks like. Your street is paved. You get rid of the drains which are on the side, so you get a wider street now. You have this permeable pavement. Simple pavers, in between filled with sand, and underneath some sand cushion. What it means, no concrete pouring is required. You just dig the street, dig the trench, put some decent sewers here. Don't let this water get mixed into the trench. Install a proper sewerage system, and without any concreting, your street becomes nice, wide, clean. You don't have to give a stormwater drain separately, because the street by itself acts as a stormwater drain. The space is utilized because not every day there is running water in the stream, in the street. And even if there is running water, you can always walk on the sides. Or even if you are splashing in the running water, that water is clean, it is being collected from your rooftops and everything, and ultimately it is going down in this one. Now the advantage of this thing is that it immediately fills up with water, and it creates a head of water. And that head actually creates pressure here. Simple hydrostatic pressure, and that pressure is enough to actually push that water deep into your aquifer. And the system that nature gave you, where the groundwater is, where rainwater gets absorbed in ground and then oozes back into the rivers from where you can use it and drink it, that system is now being restored here. And you can do it anywhere, smallest possible street to the largest possible one. Now this is a tributary of Lai, and here the same tributary is actually joining in Lai River, and this is how the Lai River looks like right now. But this can be transformed into this kind of a thing. Here you see this is a smaller stream and this is a bigger stream. This is the urban environment. This is the potential of the area around Nala Lai for Rawalpindi. They are thinking of actually putting another metro type of a thing on this stream, but no, this is the way to go. You have recharge trenches in the streets, and those water is now coming into the streams, and this is connected, and then you have walkways along these streams. You have nice roads, greenery, bicycle paths, walking tracks, and guess what? The properties which are on right or left of this waterfront, clean flowing water, those will be expensive properties. And when you create this kind of environment, what is the cost of buying a piece of land over here? This is where the municipalities can make money. Your environment is clean, and the water becomes available. The same water which is coming through rain, it is going into the ground, seeping out into the streams. It's available for you to drink and for other uses, and your city is clean. There are so many other things. There are small little ponds that you can create to capture stormwater runoff, and then underneath is a recharge trench or a recharge well where it can actually seep into the ground. It looks beautiful and it works for you. Under the streams, you can put a recharge trench. Between the medians of a road. Now this is a picture from Australia, where they have this, all the runoff is getting into this area, and then underneath is a recharge trench which is filling. What we are doing, we are putting concrete everywhere. Unfortunately, In our architecture, the median, even if it is green median, it is higher than the road. So the water cannot go onto it. It goes away from it and it creates nuisance. Whereas this one, it is actually going in and being absorbed. This is a transportation corridor where you can implement this kind of systems. Green belt, trench, recharge, going in there, road, greenway, walking track, and everything. So this is the kind of architectural planning. Looks like architectural planning, but this is actually urban planning for capturing storm water, pushing it into ground, recharging your aquifers, and using it there. This is how the systems look like. Small little obstructions in a waterway, and there's a purpose of these obstructions. One, that they break the velocity of water so that it doesn't scour, and two, it gives a little bit more time to water to stand on ground and get absorbed. And today this is Lai Nala. Potentially we can convert into a place like this. We have this potential, and if we start doing it from one end, we can do it all the way to the other end. We can do this project of metro. If this project can be done in this landscape, I mean, these projects are much easier. It does not require huge machines and deep boring and piling and foundations and everything and pouring of concrete. All it requires is leveling of ground, a little bit here, a little bit there. Not even the paved surfaces are concreted. You use those simple blocks, tough tiles and stuff. And this Sawan River, which is currently being dumped with waste by Bahria town, has the potential to be transformed into a place like this. These are all the urban streams. This is how it is done. And close to those streams, you create some green space. And there are so many architectural aesthetics that you can put in your area. It's good for the children. It's good for the elderly people. It's good for everyone. You just go out there, breathe the fresh air, walk there. All the healthy activity and lifestyles are possible with what nature has given you. Nature has given you water, nature has given you aquifer, nature has given you river system. All we have to do is conform ourselves to those systems, and we will be benefited. So the list goes on. There are so many things that you can think of. This is what we have currently. Again, a bend of Sawan River. This is Bahria town here, DHA here, and this area, this land belongs currently to DHA, and they are thinking of putting more concrete in here. But this can be turned into this thing. You have to leave the river corridor. Let the nature work with small little islands and area where heavier floods will come, get absorbed, wetlands, birds and everything. It's not just love of nature, it also is love for humans. You are improving your own life and lifestyle. And in doing so, actually you are securing your water for drinking and all other things. If you see, this is Lai Nala. This is again Cheonggyecheong stream. And the good thing about Cheonggyecheong stream is that until 2005, this stream was no different from this. Koreans undertook a project to clean it, restore it, and turn it into a tourist attraction rather than a nuisance. Today you have Lai Nala, you can do it if you want. So this would bring abundant clean water, and your water shortages out of this project, caring of water projects would be a byproduct. Now I come to the agriculture sector, which is taking 95% of our water. What really goes on in the agriculture? This is transpiration, which is the smallest part of the pie. This is the actual water which is taken up by the roots of the plants. It runs through the veins of the plant and is excreted back into the air through evaporation. The process is called basically transpiration. A plant, all the water a plant needs is to fulfill the requirements of its transpiration. These two components, evaporation and deep drainage, these are wastage. Plant does not need any evaporation or any deep drainage. And This is what I call a smiley face, because this is the wastage and this wastage is the opportunity. We can't do much with it, because if we cut this one down, our plants will not be healthy. But if we cut it completely, even if we completely cut it, the plants are still healthy. So based on this concept, we tried to develop a system. Now this is the conceptual element of that system. Here you have a source water which is coming into a semi-underground tank, and then there is a pipe connected to the water, and these two things that you see here, these are two filters. And this tank has a designed water level. Now how this design works, I'll explain a little later, why we call it design. But first this one. When this water is let into the pipe, the filters, they get in contact with the water, and these filters, they pull water through capillary forces and brings it in contact with the soil. And when the water comes in contact with the soil, soil starts further pulling it up through capillary forces. Now this is a lab experiment that we did. Here we put a filter, a water source, a pipe connecting to the filter, and this is how the moisture is moving up. Okay, this is a closer look. If you look at this one, there are some dates. We were following this rising curve, and there are dates, and the year is 2013. So we were kind of measuring how long it takes for that bubble of water to grow. But then there's something called capillary fringe of the soil. This is the maximum the capillary would rise in a certain soil. This is the soil property. So this, our design level is based on the capillary fringe. We keep the maximum height a few inches below the ground surface. So when the capillary water rises, it does not come to the surface and evaporate. It remains below the surface. And if you leave the system for a while, this rounded thing would level off, because the capillary won't go above this level. And this is how we conceptualize that now once there is moisture in this part of the soil, the roots of the plants can actually take moisture from this one and transpire it. Now in this system, what you see is there is almost no evaporation, there is no deep drainage, because this whole system is contained and closed, and we have saved those two parts of the pipe. So conceptually we thought this thing off and tested it in a lab, and after a while this moisture, it leveled off. Here's a closer look. This one leveled off. And then there's something very interesting happened in this experiment. You see there's some grass is growing here. In the previous picture you did not see any grass. When we put this soil here, it had roots of grass in it, and they were not growing. And when it gets moistened, the grass started growing. This was an unplanned, accidental validation of our concept that this moisture that is created by the capillary is good enough to sustain the growth of the plants. So we moved further and we created farms. We named them SCET farms. Its acronym came from this Urdu phrase, Zere Zameen Apashi Khilyan. We did not want to give it an English word or a French or a German word or a Greek word. Because we developed this thing in Pakistan, so we just thought that we should give it a Pakistani name, and because there was no word explaining it, so we called it. And this is the SCET farm. Now this is a 1 acre farm, and here you see this is a 500-gallon household tank. This small a tank, enough to serve 1 acre through this system, because we cut down all the losses. And here if you see, this is corn, maize, makai lagi hui hai yahan pe. And if you look at the soil, it is still pulverized, it is grainy, because when you prepare the land, it becomes grainy and granular. The moment you apply water on it, you lose those grains. And here what you see is the plants are like 3 to 4 inches tall, and the surface is still grainy, which means no water has touched the surface from above. But the plants are still, all the plants are growing, and you see how thickly they are growing. How good is the germination? It's about 95% germination, which is very good. Which means every seed was getting enough moisture and it turned into a plant without any water coming from the surface. It's all coming from below the surface and through this water tank. So we made a slogan. We said, do not water the plant, only moisten the roots. Because this slogan is basically a modified slogan from Israel. Israelis, by the way, are the best water managers in the world. They say, do not water the plants, only water the roots. And that is when they invented drip irrigation system. They said, do not water the plants, only water the roots. We say, do not water the plant, only moisten the roots. We are not watering the roots, we are just moistening the roots. So we are one step ahead than Israel. This is the fish eye view of the farm. Now you see this one. How thick is this growth? And how healthy? And if you could see here, where the grass is not growing, this place is pretty dry. And this is another view. You see the uniformity? Every plant is the same size, every plant is healthy, and this is something important to see, understory. Very dry soil, yet very healthy plants. Because there is no water coming to the surface. It's all in the root zone. And then the fruit starts growing. This is a 1 foot ruler. How many of you have seen a corn that big? तो छली वाला आता है ना यहाँ पे देखें वो 6 इंच 8 इंच से ज़्यादा बड़ी नहीं होती. This is growing to a foot long and so full of grains. This is another time when the plants are slightly bigger, and again you can see the dry soil and the water tank. And this is where you can see how tall is this one. ये मकई का पौधा मेरे हाथ से ऊंचा निकल गया है. So it's really healthy plants. And why they are so healthy? Because not a minute in their growth was when water was not available. Plant is continuously getting water as much as it wants, whenever it wants. And that makes your growth better. No additional fertilizer, nothing. Just provision of water in an efficient manner. This is again the validation of our design and concept. This is the surface, a healthy plant. We dig a small hole, top 2 inches is bone dry, and below it is nice and moist. And this is how we compared it with the water usage. Today, we are producing this much for a given amount of water, whereas in USA, they are producing about 2.5 times more from the same amount of water, whereas with ZZAC, we produce this much from the same amount of water. So USA is here. There are additional advantages of this system. It's not just saving water. It increases per acre production. It favors zero tillage. Plowing costs are reduced because when your farmer has to prepare the land for the next crop, the first they cut the previous crop, then they use rootivators to mulch the roots of the plant in the soil, then they bring in the tractors and plow it deep 1 or 2 times, and then they create those furrows in the land, and they do the laser leveling. In this case, after you cut the crop, you do the mulching or rootivator thing, you put the next seeds. No need to make furrows, it's a flat bed, there's no need of deep plowing. And the farmer saves a lot of cost, because when you move the tractor, it takes money to prepare the land. So you save a lot in plowing costs. Fertilizers. Currently, the farmers are using like 8 bags of fertilizers, 4 bags of urea and 4 bags of nitrophos per acre for a season. Here, we used only 1/4 of nitrophos and 1/4 bag of urea, and that was enough for this healthy crop. So 8 times reduction in the use of fertilizers. And how we apply fertilizers? We just mix them in water, and water becomes the carrier of fertilizer as well. Otherwise, farmer puts it in the soil, and when it applies surface water, the fertilizer are mixed in water and they are seeped down into the ground, and then when they go below the root zone of the plant, it's no use for the plant. It only goes down and pollutes the aquifer. So here, 1/8. Then the use of herbicides was eliminated. We did not have to use herbicides because the top surface was so dry that no weeds could grow there. And then even pesticides were reduced because there was no standing water in the field and not many insects could hatch their eggs over there. And normally the farmers are doing 3 to 4 times the insecticide spray. We had to do it once. And that is because surrounding area has so many insects which are coming to our field as well. So we had to do it once, but if it's a large area, then maybe we don't even have to use pesticides. And because there is no standing moisture on the surface, so this problem is eliminated. And finally, there is no pollution of the shallow drinking water through herbicides, pesticides and fertilizers. So you are now getting clean aquifers. So there are so many other advantages of the same system. This is called synergy. We developed this system to save water, and it did so many other good things. It is exactly the opposite of, for every solution there are problems. Here, with every solution there are more solutions. These kind of systems are based on sustainable approaches, and if we are using that less water in our agriculture, then there is a possibility that we can return the water back to our rivers. This is how it works. Today we are using this much water on 14 million hectares of land. Our total area of irrigation system that I was showing in the previous slides, that is 14 million hectares. And 130 billion cubic meters of water is actually dumped onto that area. Whereas using this system, we can use only 22 billion cubic meters of water and save about 106 billion cubic meters of water. Now I say, if we use only half of our area and we use half of the efficiency which is possible, then we can actually do the same, we can actually save this much of water. So applying this kind of system on half the area, using only half its potential, you can use this much of water, and this is equal to 43 billion cubic meters of water. And I call it a 50-50 scenario, that you are using half the area and half the efficiency. And if we say that we want to do this much in next 20 years, that's not an unreasonable target. Next 20 years we just want to do this much. We save 43 billion cubic meters of water. What does it look like? What does the saving of 43 billion cubic meters look like? Now here is our total water. All the water that we are getting is this much, about 175 to 180 billion cubic meters. This much water we are diverting for irrigation. This much is stored in our dams, and this one is left for the environment. In 50-50-20 scenario means 50-50 doing in 20 years. In 50-50-20 scenario, we can save this much of water, and where this water is saved from is here, and where it goes here, so back into the river. And if we say a 100-100 scenario where we want to save 100% of water, which is possible, and we plan to save it in say 50 years, then we can save this much of water. And this one can go here. Now in this case, we can have our flowing rivers back. And the timeline is 50 years. I think it is achievable. 50 years is not. Because it has taken us 150 years to wreck our river system because of irrigation. But today we have a chance to steer our direction on the right course, and in 50 years we can undo the damages of last 150 years. And actually it is possible even shorter time, but let's not get into that. It depends on the resolve of the people and the government, how they want to target it. And this is what we can get. These rivers which are now running dry can start flowing again. Unfortunately, these rivers will remain dry because they are not in our control. We sold not these rivers, but we sold ourselves back in 1960, and these rivers went dry. So this area around these rivers is approximately 6 million acres. Now this 6 million acres of area could turn into a green corridor of the rivers, where you can have wetlands, you can have trees, you can have birds and fish and everything. There is this trillion tree campaign, and those things are coming up. You don't have to plant trillion trees at places where you can't even water them. You restore the environment, and the nature will give you more than a trillion trees, along with the birds and the bees and the fish and the frog. Now this is our future discourse. Now we have seen the possibilities. There are possibilities which are in our own hand. We don't need a World Bank consultant to tell us how a recharge trench is done. Recharge tank is the silver bullet for your urban areas. And this kind of an irrigation system is your silver bullet for irrigated areas. And that is where all the water consumption is. Almost all the water consumption is. So we have solutions for that. Those solutions are indigenous. They are in our grasp, within our technical and financial capabilities. So what we can do? We have the flowing rivers. What to do? We have the flowing rivers. What else we can do? Now I come here that our flowing rivers are like Middle Eastern oil. We can actually make more money out of our flowing rivers than Middle East can do with the oil. With one plus. Actually 2 pluses. There is substitute for oil. There is no substitute for water. There is substitute, the oil will ultimately run out. It will finish because it's a non-renewable resource. Our rivers are not going to go away. They are renewable for millions of years. So given these 2 advantages, we can make more money from our rivers, or from our flowing rivers, than Middle East does from the oil, and how this can be done. Invoking the engines of water economy. For now, we can only think of 2 things when thinking of earning money out of water. We say we'll do agriculture from water and make money. We will generate power from water and earn money. But those are not the only 2 economic engines. There are so many. You can do navigation, irrigation, industrial, municipal, water sports, forestry, bottling, ecotourism, river and water supply, intrinsic value of water, fisheries, aquaculture, and so many more. The list is very long. All these things you can do without taking the water out of the river. When you take the future discourse, you do not ignore this matrix. Now this matrix is important. This is any engine that you can think of as an engine of water economy. Here are the externalities and here are the internalities. Now externalities are those things which are undesired expensive consequences of a project, like erosion of delta, like waterlogging, like salinity that you do after doing irrigation projects. And internalities are the things which are not meant out of the project, but they are positive things that are happening. Like you do the efficient irrigation and you get rid of mosquitoes as a byproduct. So these are the positive byproducts and these are the negative byproducts. When you conceive a project, you run it through a matrix where you analyze all the possible externalities and all the possible internalities, put a number, a dollar value on these externalities and internalities, and only then you will know what is the net gain or loss from that project. And this project, this kind of a due diligence would actually help you select the better projects. And here I have put something in bold, which is impacts on delta. Because anything that you do to your river system, ultimately there will be some impact, positive or negative, on the delta. Now in environmental studies, what we do is we take indicative species in the environment. And those indicative species will tell you if the environment is maintained or good or bad. For example, in cold water streams, we take trout as an indicative species. If you are doing deforestation or anything, you see what happens to the trout. If population of trout is impacted, that means your intervention is impacting the environment. The thing is, we do not fully understand what are the links, but we take something at the top of the food chain, because anything goes wrong, the top at the food chain will be impacted. So here, we are slightly reversing the things. We are saying delta, although physically it is at the bottom of the river, but it is kind of at the top of the food chain. Anything happens to delta means your project has some problems. So impact on delta has to be analyzed very thoroughly, because if your delta stays healthy, everything up the road is healthy. So that must be analyzed, and not without doing through this due diligence you should undertake any of these projects. And this should some kind of become your policy document, national water policy or national development policy. And it's not just water projects. This kind of mechanism could be used for other projects as well. Now, Indus River had been historically navigable. Navigable means you can run boats into your river and you can do trade and commerce from those boats. Earliest records, Alexander Macedon. This is Sikandar-e-Azam, 326 BC. He traveled from Jhelum to Arabian Sea in boats. Then Henry Barfoot, he was an English explorer. In 1638, he traveled the rivers and he took a flat-bottom boat and traveled from Lahore to Thatta and declared the river navigable. Then Alexander Hamilton, 100 years later, another English guy, he traveled these rivers and he wrote in his memoirs that Indus River and its tributaries are navigable from Arabian Sea to Kashmir. And in mid-1800s, British had actually established a flotilla company which was trading from Thatta all the way to Multan and Lahore for trades and goods. At that time, Portuguese had a good hold of all the small little ports which were between Karachi and Rann of Kutch. And Karachi was a separate port even at that time. And these ports in district Badin and Thatta, they were dominated by Portuguese and French. And English had little influence of them. English were using port of Karachi. From Karachi, they would use Gizri Creek, small little boats, and they would take their stuff to a place on river Indus which is called Jhirk. It is a small town down south of Hyderabad. Today this town looks like the ruins of an old city. People still live there, but it's in shambles. They developed the most advanced inland navigation port on Jhirk. And from Jhirk, they would load that stuff in bigger boats, and then they will transport it all the way into the rivers to Lahore, and from Lahore, train to Delhi. Multan was another important port of call. So this system, it worked. But then it was the defeat in Afghan wars that the British decided not to develop this river for inland navigation. Otherwise, the British had a plan to develop this thing for navigation. And then British decided that this river should be turned into something that it cannot be used for navigation. They got firmly defeated in the Second Afghan War of the 1870s, and they had a fear that if they develop this river system for navigation and they lose hold in this part of the world, then Russians will come and take benefit of this river and will have a good access to the warm waters of Arabian Sea. So when we talk about warm waters and Russian interest in warm waters, this is not a thing of today. This is not a thing of Cold War. this is from the mid-19th centuries and 18th century, that French and British, they were not interested that Russia should have access to the warm waters. And that is why one of the other reasons, and the actual reason behind building all those large irrigation network, was to let the river run dry. If there is no water coming down at the delta, the navigation is not possible. If there are so many structures built across the river, navigation becomes difficult. And it was this thing at the back of the British mind. You can read a lot of literature where every now and then British are fearful of a Russian invasion. At one point in time, they thought that Russia and Napoleon will join hands and they will attack Afghanistan and come and attack India and take control of the river. And then they will have access to warm waters. So it was basically the fear of Russians, warm waters, access to warm waters, that British wanted to deny your river system from its navigational potential, and that is why they built so many irrigation works, just to let the river run dry. And then after the independence, when the two nations separated, it was America. This was the time when Cold War started. It was the Americans who encouraged Indians to divert all the water they could, because ultimately that would impact delta. And they also fooled us to let our rivers run dry. There was this guy, his name was David Lilienthal. He's quite a big name in water management, and especially in the design of Indus Water Treaty. It was Lilienthal's brainchild that we built all those dams and all those diversion canals and stuff. Because Americans were making money on both sides, but more than making money, they were serving their strategic objective, denying the river of its navigational potential. Lilienthal taught a lesson to both Indians and Pakistanis. He said that water going into the sea is escapage. No, escapage is not an English word, but he invented this word. Escape means somebody who just slips away, like a thief escaped. It has some kind of a negative connotation. Something that should have been stopped or caught and we could not do it, that is escape. He coined the terms escapage. And he says escapages to the sea is wastage. And he also taught the two sides a lesson that if the water is flowing in the river, it is unused. If you take it out, it is used. And today what we are doing, we are still repeating the same lesson, both India and Pakistan. We also say that water in the river is wastage, it should be taken out. We also say that water going to the sea is wastage and it should be stopped. India says the same. India says, look, Pakistan has water flowing in the rivers and going into the sea. They are wasting their water. So if they are not building dams, we will build dams. And we are saying the same thing. So how it is possible that at an international forum, in an international court of law, when you present your point is the same point as the Indian's point. So how you can counter them? You are not coming in front of them, you are just standing parallel to them. You can never win an argument. Then there's another argument that Pakistani make. They say that, well, we are lower riparians, so India should not take our water because we are lower riparians, we should use this water. And then Indians very easily counter that argument. They say, your Sindh is lower riparian, you are not even listening to them. You don't take care of lower riparians, why should we take care of lower riparians? So we are exactly towing the lines of India, and one step back, we both are towing the lines of Lilienthal. ये वो ज़माना था, डिसीजन मेकर उस ज़माने के वो थे जिन्होंने उस ज़माने में स्कूलिंग की थी जिस ज़माने में रटा लगाया जाता था. People will go to school, they will mug up a lesson and reproduce it. तो अनफॉर्चुनेटली उस ज़माने के पढ़े हुए लोग उस वक्त पाकिस्तान के डिसीजन मेकर बन के बैठे हुए थे, और काफ़ी लोग आज भी उसी ज़माने के हैं और उसी किस्म के स्कूलों के पढ़ के आए हुए हैं कि एक चीज़ का जो बचपन में रटा लगा लिया था, बस अब उसी के ऊपर चल रहा है, उसी को रिप्रोड्यूस करोगे तो नंबर मिलेंगे, नहीं तो नहीं मिलेंगे. Today we have to think differently. We have to get out of that Lilienthal's lesson. We have to stop repeating it. If we come with a counter argument against India, well, we want flowing rivers, and a flowing river is what we want. And look, this is what we are doing. Then in an international court of law, India stands nowhere. India cannot counter us because the global mind is talking of sustainability. You say, look, my design is sustainable. It cares for the fish and the frog and the bird and the bee. Indian design is destroying the environment. Then Indians cannot stand. You ask for environment, but in order to get to that higher moral ground, you have to change your own course. First start demonstrating it in your country so that you can call the people from the outside world, look, this is what we are doing. We are doing the sustainable things. We are restoring our wetlands. We are letting our rivers flow. We are moving towards efficiency. So that is how low carbon green growth model will counter India, and for good. The good thing is Indus is still navigable. Despite all those irrigation infrastructure, and it is still navigable. This is such a Sher Darya, this is such a mighty river, it still has the potential to keep going. And let us navigate into it. The value of navigation, economic value, is listed in so many other countries. This is a document from USA. You can go and read it. You would know what is the economic benefit of navigation. A simple statistic. A container which comes for transit trade for Afghanistan lands in Karachi. The trucking company charges $4,500 to $5,000 to take that container by road and deliver it in Jalalabad. $5,000. The same container, if it is moved on a boat in a river, it will cost not more than $250. It's about 20 times cheaper. That is where the economy comes in. And nothing would work unless there's an economic incentive in front of it. You develop this waterway, Afghanistan would per force become your friend. It would have no other choice because they don't want to pay $5,000 for a container, whereas the same container can be delivered in $250. So you can see all these transportation things. You can find it on the Google. And engineering solutions to how you go across a barrage, how you go across a bridge. Because some people argue that, hey, there are bridges on your road, how the boat would cross? There's a barrage on the river. So there are engineering solutions available. So, and this is how river ports look like in those parts of the world who are using their rivers for navigation. This water is not wasted. This is ultimately going to the sea. This is still in the river. It is not unused. Because, look at this. You have the potential. You are a population of 200 million people. And if you connect your river with the other countries, give them the trade, then this population goes more than 400 million. A population of 400 million would require infrastructure like this, which is a symbol of booming economy. This is how the boats and the containers are moved in the rivers. This picture is from Parana River in Brazil, which is about the size of Indus River. This is the potential of Indus River. It's not a small river. India is trying it, but in Ganges. But they cannot do it because Ganges has its delta in Bangladesh. Indus has its delta in Pakistan. We don't have to renegotiate deals with another country. It's in our grasp. India has parts of tributaries of Sindh, but their delta is again in Pakistan. So who is at the advantage? We have the advantage, but we are not taking it. Now I will give you a small comparison of a river in Europe, Sava River. It's such a small river that I'm sure hardly anybody would have heard the name Sava River. The biggest river in Europe is Danube, the next one is Rhine. All others are smaller ones. This is Sava River. It is running through 4 countries and ultimately draining in Danube. This river is about 48 billion cubic meters of water annually. It's 900 kilometers of navigable length, serving a population of 8.2 million people, which is about the smaller than actually the population of Lahore. There is only 200 megawatt of installed hydel capacity on this river. Now compare it with Indus. Again shared between 4 countries. This is about 3.5 times bigger than Sava River in terms of water volume. Again, about 3.5 times longer navigable length. 250 million is the population if we include Pakistan and Afghanistan only. 7,000 megawatt of hydropower currently on this one. Now, there is a city, Belgrade, on Sava River. This is what a boat on Sava River looks like. And this is what the people living in this city look like. Happy, healthy, prosperous, neat, clean, everything. And that was a flowing river where the water was not taken out, where they did not follow Lilianth's advice that stop it to go in the river, stop it from take the water out. So we followed Lilianth's advice. We dammed it, we diverted it. This is what our boat looks like. And this is what the people look like. This is so unfortunate. Our river is 3.5 times bigger and we are 1 million times inferior. Indus navigation is an instrument of regional peace. This is the length in which we can start navigation, serving 200 million strong Pakistanis. We can extend it through Kabul River into Afghanistan and add another 20 million clients to our river system. And Afghanistan can actually establish an inland port in Jalalabad or Serobi and start serving Russia and Central Asia, another 50 million people. So all these people are the clients of your Indus River. You have a bigger client base and you have a facility that those clients can use. You make money way more than Middle East does. And then down the road, India is here. This part of India is pretty away from the sea. They produce agriculture products and they sell it to Middle East. Now remember, by adopting better irrigation practices, we can actually produce more than what we are producing today and let our rivers flow. So we can produce more than what India is doing here because they are using old techniques. When we produce more, we have this navigation corridor out into the Arabian Sea and off to the markets. Middle East is somewhere here. Nothing grows in Middle East and they depend on imported agriculture products. You become their largest supplier. Currently, this part, Indian Punjab, is doing a lot of trade of agriculture products with the Middle East. They will not be able to compete your price when you are moving your goods through this channel. And you are producing your goods cheaper if you are using systems like diesel. So they will be out of market. You can give them this economic punch, if I can say so. And they would be left with only one choice. Because they would see that these portions and this portion, they have become your friends. Obviously, Afghanistan, why would they like to prefer India over Pakistan? Because they are getting some advantage from India that they are not getting from Pakistan. But then, if this thing is invoked, the kind of advantage they start getting from Pakistan, they cannot get from India. So what you can do, what Indians can do at the end, they would ask us to please connect us through these rivers with your waterway so that our farmers don't die. And we can ask them, okay, invoke efficient practices in this region and let these rivers flow. Open up your dams and let these rivers flow and we will let you navigate. So this is where you, being the lower riparian, are invoking an economic model which actually favors the lower riparian. Lower riparian is dictating the terms for upper riparian. But it is not bad for the upper riparian because upper riparian is getting benefited. In case of diversions and damming, when upper riparian takes advantage of the river, the lower riparian suffers. Here in this case, the things are reversed. When the lower riparian takes advantage, the upper riparian also prospers. So this is the kind of paradigm shift that we need in our thinking. And after we can invoke these people, we can actually serve 350 to 400 million people across 9 countries. And if you have 9 countries benefiting in trade and commerce through you, they are all your friends. And those 9 countries are not living on this planet in isolation. Every country is benefiting another 3 or 4 countries. And they become your friend of friend. Like you have friends of friends on Facebook. So you have a lot of friends and friends of friends. And that is where the international lobbying that you always lament that India has better international lobbying and everybody is against you. Then you will find out that everybody is against India and everybody is with you. That is how you can actually, by using your water smartly, you can boon your economy, you can boon your strategic advantage, you can boon your international relations, you can increase trade, commerce, tourism, everything. And the best of all, these wars which are consuming the 2 countries because of water, they would start turning into peace because of water. Any questions?